Hey guys, this is the live stream. It's not the real show. Calm down, calm down. I know we're going to waffle for a little bit to make sure that we're all on stream and that you can hear us and that you can see us. Uncle Steve is producing today, so we need to be simpatico. We need to make sure that I've muted the live stream that I'm monitoring as well. But there will be a timestamp in the description, so you can just click on that and you will go straight to the beginning of the race review proper. But yeah, it is... What time's it here? It's midnight here, so I'm modulating my voice to cause the least amount of upset in our house. I also have a house full of nieces and nephews as well, and I was so locked into the formation lap, absolutely locked in, eyes focused on the screen. The family came home. I'm like, yeah, I expect my son to come and join me, my daughter to go off and start singing. Locked into that. Suddenly my niece appears, who I was not expecting to see, and she's like 8 years old, little blonde girl, and honestly, like she just appeared in my periphery and I honestly thought I'd seen a little girl ghost. That's how locked in I was to this Mexican Grand Prix start. And it's because there's no sprint weekend. It's because there's no sprint weekend. Everything was building up to this Mexican Grand Prix start. And like, it was all day. It's not until 8 o'clock. And since my family was away, I did the only sensible thing when there's a late Grand Prix, and I hunkered down and I had count them. I had two midday naps. Now, there are no other UK people in the Missed Apex crew. Hello, live chat, by the way. There's no other, tell us that you can see us and hear us. There's no other UK people in the Missed Apex chat. So we have the people who ably did our Mexican Grand Prix preview. Of course, we've got Matt joining us. Matt, what time is it for you? Evening yet?
Yeah, indeed. It's almost 8 p.m. because once again, it was down to me to remember that you changed your clocks.
I didn't tell you. I had no idea. So in the olden days, it used to be a big thing. Remember, you're changing the clocks, etc. Now you just trust whatever your phone says. And I woke up and it was like 9, and I was feeling really refreshed. Hello, Maria. Hello, Daniel. Hello, other Maria. You don't know which one I'm calling other Maria, and Mia as well, and Mark and Bruce and Chris. Yeah, I just woke up and I went, I feel like refreshed. And I didn't realize that we'd had an extra hour of sleep, but that meant there was an extra hour until the F1 as well. I was like, so it's effectively at my 9 p.m. This is getting ridiculous. We should never have invited the Americans into F1. And I mean Americans in the broad.
It was far too late. We've been here since the beginning, practically.
And then from the other side of the world, we've got Jonathan Simon joining us from, I don't know, Adelaide or Melbourne or one of the towns.
Well, Melbourne. Be careful, Spanners. It's Melbourne. I agree with you in terms of everyone says, oh, you're American. And American can be broad. I mean, you can be Mexican American, you can be Canadian, North American. You know, you're from the United States, I think it's more specific, or you're Mexican, which is where most of the people watching the race today were from at the track, obviously.
Yeah, they did not like some of the drivers. And one,
I
don't know what the was.
Did not like a British driver at all.
But yeah, well, I don't know. They like Hamilton, who's a British driver. But yeah, it's early morning for you, Jono, isn't it? Early morning.
No, it's late morning, 11 a.m. This is the only podcast I've ever done in Missed Apex history where I don't feel like sick and my head's spinning, and I can actually get my thoughts correct compared to the preview, which we recorded at 2 a.m.
Jono's always very brave, and he's like, it's all right, I'll do it at 3 in the morning. It's like, no, I don't want 3 in the... And Christina's the other one because she's on Vancouver time. So Christina will say, oh, no, it's okay, I'll do it at like 5 in the morning. I'm like, no, I don't want people on who at their 3, 4, 5 in the morning.
It's out of love, Spanners. Love of the sport, love of this podcast, love of the crew, love of you, love of Matt. This is why we do it.
I would say try and get me up for a 4 o'clock thing, but we have had the odd ones. I think Vegas is very silly o'clock. So if I'm not in Vegas, then I'll be getting up at silly o'clock as well. I think I had to get up at 4 o'clock once to do a live podcast watch along in London. And I was like, this is not cool. This is not a morning get up and go to London sport for me. All right.
But what happens is, sorry, last thing I was going to say before we go is, what happens is you have a thought and then you start talking and then you start falling asleep mid-sentence and you go, oh, wait a second, what was my point? I got it wrong. What's happening? And you go, oh no, I need to start talking better for the podcast so it can really take its toll on you.
Oh, there's like a race like this. There's some incidents with like really multiple points where you have to hold on to like 4 or 5 different thoughts at once. And it happens to all of us. You go down this kind of cul-de-sac and you go, I know this was leading somewhere, but I don't know where it's leading. And then the best is when you've got the rest of the panel who's just staring at you going, we know exactly what's happening. Suffer, Jono, suffer.
Oh, wow. Shall we get to it? Are we...
Yeah, no. We got to do it. Jono's got to go. He's got to go and do worky works. And me and Matt have to, well, do you know what? Because I slept all day. After this, I'll be staying up and playing Rome Total War Remastered.
Might as well turn the day around.
Exactly. Okay, let's get into it. So we got Steve, do you want to say hi? Or can't you? So we've also got Steve in, we don't have to see.
Hello all, how are you going?
So that's Uncle Steve. He's doing the video production, and he did the whole production, start to finish, with the preview, which went very well. There was no one there to stop Matt, to interrupt Matt, but apart from that, it was pretty good, Steve. Yeah.
Always a mistake to not interrupt me.
It was late in the night, that's all.
Yeah, you're another one who does crazy hours for us as well, especially like you do our iRacing broadcasts really early in the week, don't you?
Yeah, they're early. It's like 4 o'clock in the morning start.
We appreciate that. You're a noble warrior. So the only problem we're going to have is me and Steve are a little bit blind because we can't do audio communication with the setup we've got. But this makes us bulletproof for when we're off doing outside broadcasts and when we're doing things like in Miami, when we're doing like spectacular show off things like that. All right then. So let's get going. I believe we're going to have some kind of still graphic. Spinny car. Here we go. And basically, I'll start talking when I see that flying helmet. You are listening to Missed Apex Podcast. We live F1. Welcome to Missed Apex Podcast. I'm your host, Richard Reddy, but my friends call me Spanners. So let's be friends. We have a new championship leader for the first time in a while. Lando Norris will definitely be the happiest driver on the plane home, as he now knows that all he has to do to be world champion is to outscore his teammate. And if Verstappen wins every single race, including sprint races, towards the end of the year, then he only has to finish P2 to win this championship. So coming up, we'll ask, how bad was this for Oscar Piastri? Whose fault was the turn one chaos? Did Lewis deserve a 10-second penalty? Who was right between the Mercedes pit wall and George Russell? And more on this high-altitude episode of Missed Apex Podcast. We are an independent podcast produced in the podcasting shed with the kind support of our patrons and partners. We aim to bring you a race review before your Monday morning commute. We might be wrong, but we're first. I'm joined in the shed, as I often am, by Matt Trumpets.
And once again, Pirelli have saved the day. Imagine how boring that would have been without tires.
Well, you know, they managed to make the Mexican Grand Prix, I think, slightly interesting. The aim was to make the two-stopper possibility, and it worked. Plus, we had drama from racing incidents and the stewards, and no one seemed to be having to massively oversave or overcool, and there was just enough going on and enough differences between the strategies to have cars passing and overtaking.
Yeah, which is a rarity at Mexico, I will say.
Yeah, no. I was saying, like, your expectations for Mexico are just like in the dirt, and in a way, it was almost too exciting. I was expecting a very chill Mexican Grand Prix, and I was angry for large parts of it. Go and check out my Twitter feed if you want to see what the emotions I was going through during the race.
At one point on lap 6 in my notes, I just literally wrote the word "what" with a question mark.
Yeah, what is going on here?
What is happening here? Yeah.
And what is going on with this international panel? Because joining us all the way from Australia is TV reporter Jonathan Simone.
What's the point of having rule spanners if half the grid interpret the rules one way and the other half interpret them the others? I don't even think the drivers know what the rules are anymore when it comes to race battles or wheel-to-wheel battles.
They just sort of have to go with it, go for it, do the best they can, and kind of let the stewards sort it out. I think it's a perfectly reasonable thing for the drivers to go, all right, well, I'll do the best thing for me now in the moment, and we'll just see what the stewards say, because it's different every time. You may as well gamble.
Well, it is, but then you watch the first lap and turn one, which we'll get into in a little bit. But you see some drivers cutting the track, and then the others are going, well, I'm going to respect the rules and be nice. And it seems like the ruthless people won on that occasion because they weren't penalized. So I don't know. I don't know what the rules are anymore. I don't know what to think. I will say this before we get into it. I know gray area is a beautiful part of the sport, and I think if you don't appreciate the gray area of Formula One, you're a simpleton. That's not calling anyone out there a simpleton, but I'm just saying it's part of the beauty of the sport. It's created a lot of arguments. And like we were discussing before the podcast, we've never been this angry after a race, but also it's because we love the sport and we care and we enjoyed it.
Yeah, and so turn one was actually a classic turn one, and I was briefing the kids that were watching with me and saying, you know, this is going to be one to look out for the car in place 3 and all the cars coming behind, because you've got the slipstream, so you've got a chance of it being 3 wide for the leaders. But to have a 4 wide turn one into the Mexican Grand Prix was massively exciting, massively thrilling. Did not know where to look. So to start off with, like, I'm watching Hamilton as a Hamilton fan. Can you get that slipstream? And Norris really aggressively goes to the inside. And I think this is what kicks off the whole start, Matt, is that Norris goes to the inside. Hamilton's like, I need that slipstream. I'm going to go for that slipstream. Initially, he picked up Leclerc's, actually, and then went into Norris's. And Leclerc, you know, they're talking about, you know, it's 2v1 on the McLarens. No, it's not. Leclerc is boxing Lewis in to make sure that he's the one fighting Norris. And then Verstappen is just having this charge down the outside as well. And yeah, what follows can only be described as chaos.
Yeah, no, the whole race was kicked off by Max just being, well, you could use the word greedy, but
no,
I would say we're going to get to the end of lap 6, and I'm going to have a thing to say about all the decisions that happened. But right then and there, I did not fully get the idea that he had any intention of actually going around that corner at all, but giving himself a very good excuse for cutting the corner. So I'm going to start with that.
Oh, I don't know, Jono.
No, wait a second, Matt. So Verstappen did lock up. You mentioned this 15 minutes ago, just before we jumped on. You mentioned Max locked up turn 1, lap 1, unless you're talking about another lockup.
I was talking about turn 6 in the Hamilton battle.
Oh, okay, that lockup. All right, so yeah. I think lap 1, turn 1, Max had no intentions to actually run off the road. Like, obviously, every driver's intentions is to make turn 2. Except Charles Leclerc, which we'll get into in a little bit. But Max Verstappen almost crashed, you know, going off the road so quickly. We saw this, was it Rosberg or Hamilton 10 years ago? It was Hamilton 10 years ago, something similar. So I don't think that was necessarily the worst situation for Max. You know, he had to run off the road, no grip. A lot of drivers ran off the road too. Yeah. Turn 6 we'll get into in a moment's time, what happened a few laps later, or lap 6, excuse me.
Yes.
So I think Verstappen avoided an accident. It's Leclerc that was the biggest controversy in this one.
Actually, I think both of them were sort of fine based on precedent of what happened here. Because Jono, you're right to point out the Hamilton one. Don't say it was 10 years ago. Don't age me faster than I need to do. I think it was something like 2018, 2019, something like that. Mm-hmm. And he basically just does the same as Verstappen, goes straight off and ends up cutting straight to turn 3. So firstly, I don't think any driver is going to look at that and go, I want to go over the grass. I want to risk it. I think we have Leclerc go off there at turn 1 at 1 year and spin. So it's dangerous to be on the grass. You can't get on the power. You're not fully in control. But I don't think any driver is going to choose to do that. To me, it looked like he got up on the curbing, and that just affects your brake point. He was doing a really ambitious thing on the outside of 3 cars going, I can do this. Like, the belief is incredible from Verstappen, and he's in such a purple patch and such a purple run. I can fully imagine in his head, like, I'm going to do this outside. Imagine if he'd got outside 3 cars and ended up anywhere but 3rd or 4th. It would have been incredible.
Now, when Leclerc ran off the road, it's clear that he could have gone side by side with
Oh,
Lewis,
yeah.
correct, on this occasion. I think Verstappen had a case where he locked up, had to run off the
Yeah.
road, sort of gave back at his advantage. Leclerc's the weird one because I think that he should have lost that position to Hamilton, and I don't think he did. He didn't.
No, he was behind Hamilton. If you
Yeah.
look at the picture, he goes off and Hamilton is clearly ahead of him. It's not a question of him losing anything. It's a question of him taking and then not returning, and also doing so without any acknowledgement by the stewards.
And
Yeah.
the stewards, Spanners, I should say, the stewards shouldn't care if it's the same team or if it's an intra-team battle. The stewards should say these are two separate drivers in a race for position, wheel to wheel. It doesn't matter if Ferrari don't want to protest it, right? It matters whether or not Leclerc's followed the rules, which he hasn't.
So, in a way, though, he has, because they let this kind of thing go on turn one at Mexico often. And if you go wide at turn 3 in Austria, for example, on turn 1, they tend to let that go. There's this philosophy that if you're avoiding like a contact and you go off, just rejoin, just don't gain any places, kind of go back to where you are. That seems to be the unwritten rule. This Mexico Grand Prix, though, it needs a little penalty area like Monza into turn 1, the same way that you have at turn 4. Why it doesn't have one at turn 1 is weird. I know a lot of old school people say, yeah, but natural barrier, this is why everything should be grass and gravel. Yeah. Go and yell at clouds, right? Because like, we have technology, we have modern techniques. Little penalty runoff areas work really well. You must go through this area. And I think Leclerc and Verstappen would have ended up down the grid. But here's the crucial thing for me. There isn't a penalty runoff area. There is a history of drivers going off and being able to rejoin. So what Verstappen did is reasonable in that second to go, yeah, I'm all right. I can go off. You know, so you go, well, okay, I'll make sure that I'm behind all the people I was specifically fighting at that moment. And I think Leclerc, in his head, he was justifying, I'll do that as well. But yeah, the team weren't going to tell the Ferraris to swap because there's just no point hindering your race to do that. Hamilton didn't expressly say, hey, I was ahead of Leclerc here, you should have let me by. But I absolutely agree that really Max didn't make the corner, so he should be out of that battle. Leclerc squeezed Hamilton into Piastri, and Hamilton backed out of that and got a good cutback. So Hamilton did everything right. And yeah, like you say, Jono, I didn't notice it until you showed me the screenshots. But there was enough room for Leclerc to stay up. And so it's either he went too hot into that corner to hold that place and he couldn't stay on track, or he decided to kind of do a little bit of a professional foul. Like, oh no, oh, I can't believe it. Oh, I've had to cut the corner instead. Well, I guess I'll give one place back because that's where I think I was.
And credit to Lando Norris in this whole situation. Should have been passed, should have been P3, P4. It's one of the longest runs down to turn 1, if not, I think, the longest.
Yeah,
and he's managed to maintain P1 the entire time. And also, to his teammate, Oscar Piastri, you watch Leclerc run off the road, you watch Verstappen. I think Colapinto and Lawson made contact, so fair enough there. Piastri's too nice. Was in the same situation as Leclerc, if not worse, and decided to take turn 2. Now, why didn't Piastri be more ruthless? It's because Piastri respected the rules, and I don't think Leclerc did, and Leclerc seemed to get away with it. And this is where we're getting confused on the podcast, because I don't know what the rules are anymore.
Well, yeah. So strictly speaking, the rule is he's made an overtake off track. Just give back the places from the overtake. So apparently Heraclea says, Lewis did say that. He said several times that he was ahead of Charles Leclerc going in. So thank you to that. That's Heraclea. Hi to Heraclea, Gigi, Justin, Adrian, Bruce, all the guys, Daniel, in our Patreon live chat. So that's where we have our chat enabled. If you're a patron in our Discord active chat, join us at patreon.com/Missed Apex. So, okay, so he was making his case. I didn't catch that personally. But yeah, I think he can feel a little bit aggrieved out of that situation. And also, really in the whole kind of kerfuffle of the cars getting back on track, he lost out there as well. So there's a big kind of philosophical question. What do we do when cars go off track at the start? I would rather they had somewhere to go than crash into each other. But then you had, say, Alonso definitely did oh no, I've got to go off and go through the penalty area and gained places. Was that at Barcelona? Can't remember where that
It was Russia a couple of years ago. I think I know which one you're talking about.
Such
Yeah.
it happens, yeah. But yeah, so sometimes they don't get it right. But yeah, a turn one runoff is absolutely fine. But yeah, in this situation, it's been, it's definitely messed around Hamilton and a couple of guys. And I think it was, by the way, Albon or Sainz that hit Lawson, not Colapinto.
Oh, not Colapinto. Excuse me. Yes, my mistake.
I don't think that one was anyone's fault. There was just a bit of shenanigans and I think a snap of oversteer understeer going into that one. But yeah, let's get into that lap 6 incident then between Hamilton and Verstappen. I'm going to hold my horses because I can see the YouTube comments now. Yeah, you know which side of this I'm going to come out on. I think Hamilton was incredibly unlucky, but we were joking in the Patreon Discord. We're like, out of all that chaos, I bet it's only Hamilton that gets a penalty. Ha 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 ha. And then a 10-second penalty. Now, to be clear, the penalty was not for, in the end, taking the escape road incorrectly. I think they seem to have accepted his argument that it's very narrow and very slippy, and he didn't. They gave the penalty for gaining a lasting advantage, and I don't think it was even the place; it was the amount of time. But let's go through that whole sequence from turn 1 to past turn 4, Jono. I'm livid. I'm absolutely livid.
Same, because when we break this down, you'll understand why. Let's start off with turn 1 first, because this is very complex as to why Lewis should not have been handed a penalty in this situation. So turn 1, Max Verstappen attempts a reasonable maneuver at an overtake. He's not deliberately trying to make contact. Now, he's ahead at the apex, which is what one analyst said when I was watching post-race. And I'm like, well, if you go 370 kilometers into any corner in Formula 1, you're going to be ahead of the apex. So you need to do it under control, which he wasn't, made contact with Lewis Hamilton. Lewis Hamilton's gone off the road.
Define control. John, you've got to define control. That's the thing.
Control to me, exactly. But control to me is if you're making contact with another car who's given you adequate space on the inside. To me, that's not control. The other car's under control, and you're not. Thank you, Matt. And so in this occasion,
this is the point that was bugging me too. So thank you for bringing it up.
The counter is because he's ahead at the apex, it's his corner. So doesn't Hamilton have to jump out of the way like Verstappen did against Russell in America?
But he was ahead at the apex, in my opinion, not under control. But this is the beauty of the sport, right? Gray area. Like, you could easily argue that Verstappen pulled off a good overtake. You could easily argue that Hamilton didn't. I think that's fair. I don't think there's any problems with that. I think good, hard racing between the both of them, right? In the end of all this, Hamilton's had to run off the road. So in my opinion, if you're having to run off the road because somebody's overtaken you and made contact with you, I don't think that's a fair overtake. And fair enough. I think Max was trying to give the position back, regardless whether or not he cut the next corner or not. It became ugly between the two, but it was good, hard racing up until that point. Now, this is turn 1, the right-hander. Have we covered enough at this point? Because then we have to talk about turn 2 for 2 minutes, then turn 3, and then turn 4.
I think, I'm not quite finished with turn 1, and I don't know if we've got the whose fault is it bumper on hand because Uncle Steve is doing this live for a race review the first time. But I will say, we have to say whose fault is it? Now, if Hamilton has got the bumper launched, well done, Uncle Steve. If because we have to assign blame here. We have to assign blame. Personally, I think Hamilton has taken a reasonable line into the corner. The move isn't definitely happening. It's a relatively late move. It's from relatively far back, but looking at the overhead, it's not as far back as I thought initially when watching it. Like Verstappen's a couple of car lengths back. You can make that move, but it really feels like this who's ahead at the apex is designed for moves where people are kind of alongside each other down the straight, going into the corner, and you go, well, who owns the corner? If someone appears quite late, it's reasonable to me that Hamilton has made a decision to turn into the corner. I'm ahead, I'm going to turn. At some point, you have to make a decision to turn. And he has left space. So you go, well, maybe he saw it like, oh, he's making a move. I'll leave enough space and I'll head for the exit. We can't have a situation where as soon as someone makes a lunge, the outside car has to drive off like Verstappen did against Russell and just see whether or not the inside car ends up staying on track or not. That doesn't feel like good racing to me. And also, like, once there's contact, you go, well, now we've got no way to tell whether Verstappen would have made the corner or did Hamilton slow him down enough. And the rule is for, like, it's your corner, is about whether you're entitled to room on the apex. And we never got to whether you're entitled to room on the exit. So yes, if you're judged to be side by side, Verstappen's got enough room on the inside, then Verstappen can run him off. I hate that, but that's the truth. But we didn't get to that because we had the contact beforehand. So what's the rule for, how tightly can the outside car turn in? Like, when do you have to go for the apex? How shallow do you have to be?
If Verstappen didn't make contact, then fair play. That's Verstappen's overtake. That's his pass. But the contact ruins things here, because then you bring in another rule. From my understanding, you can't force another driver off the road, right? Whether it's apex or not, you've made contact. So that's what I'm trying to understand. Can we just throw our cars into each other now and create damage? And I thought we'd solved this 3-4 years ago when this was happening. And now all of a sudden today that wasn't looked at. I'm a bit confused.
Yeah, and the chat is doing really well here. So, like Justin asks, are T1 and T2 control? I think Daniel said that as well. Are they considered the same corner for this purpose, or hang on, where's Justin's comment there? I think he said something about
at the bottom.
The fact that if is T2 where Lewis was more than enough ahead at the apex under these rules, does that mean he's now entitled to shove off Verstappen, which he did? In which case, Verstappen cut the corner and gained a position and gained an advantage. He didn't let Hamilton back. So, like, Verstappen to me is just living a privileged life there, not getting a penalty for the contact and not getting a penalty for cutting the corner and gaining an advantage, which Hamilton later cut the corner, gained an advantage, 10-second penalty. I'm lost on how Hamilton is the net loser on this one.
You go, Matt.
Well, I was going to say, I think there's a couple of things going on here. First of all, between the two of them, only one of them is in the championship fight. So I think you've already got, and this is nothing to do with anything other than how referees tend to treat people who are champions, or they tend to be a little looser. They look for more reasons to excuse marginal behavior. And his off tracks at that point weren't as egregious as the lap one off track. And it sort of clearly came about from the wheel banging that was already going on. I still get frustrated by that, saying either of them is entitled to the corner because of the contact. To me, you can argue the contact means he wasn't in control, therefore he's not entitled to it.
Okay, but let's just say the wheel banging is normal. And let's go, there's a little bit of wheel banging, rubbing, racing. They both survived. Verstappen came out slightly ahead. Hamilton then was alongside enough on the inside and was entitled to shove Verstappen off. That's what I don't get. I don't get how Verstappen does not get a penalty for then holding and defending that position into turn 4. Like, I'm literally like, I don't want to be the one like, oh, Verstappen's getting away with murder and Hamilton's being done. But Hamilton was investigated for half a dozen incidents and penalised, the only person penalised for any of that stuff. It looks to me horrible. I can't help but scream tin hat, tin foil, Colt LH. Like, I'm sorry if that's how it's coming across.
Well,
it's madness.
I think it's fair. And Lewis also, after the race, what I'm saying is I think our criticism's fair, because Lewis after the race has also said, quote, ultimately, I feel very let down by the governing body, but it's double standards. As you can tell, it is what it is. So Lewis as well has said that. I think we believe that it's double standards here. I'm not understanding the rules between different corners and wheel-to-wheel battles on this occasion. Now, you've mentioned Verstappen gaining the advantage. Now, I believe this brings back, if anybody remembers the 2008 Belgian Grand Prix, similar situation with Lewis Hamilton and Kimi Raikkonen, the last few laps. So Lewis cut the corner there, like Verstappen did. Then Lewis gave the position back. Now, he actually slotted in behind Raikkonen. The steward said, well, we don't believe you slotted in enough, and we thought you still gained an advantage, because then he repassed him, handed Lewis a post-race penalty and costing him the win. On this occasion, Verstappen hasn't even given the full position back.
As far as hasn't attempted.
Exactly. As far as I'm aware, at turn 4, they're side by side. I need to actually probably rewatch that, but as far as I remember, they were side by side. Now, the steward's report, and this is just, I thought this was going to give me a sense of peace and clarity, and I was going to enjoy my day. It's made things worse. The steward's report says Hamilton gained advantage over Verstappen. But Max was giving the position back, was he not, after cutting turn 2? So what advantage did
Oh,
Hamilton gain? I
oh.
don't understand that.
See, I didn't see it like that. I saw it as Verstappen defending that position. And then, right, here's the question, Matt, and I know you watch the live timings more than me.
Yeah.
Is that advantage from the beginning of the corner to after the corner, or is the advantage from where Hamilton was at the beginning of the racing? So like from turn 1, because it looked to me like he was about the same distance behind Leclerc that he was going into that lap, and also obviously he's going to gain distance if Behrman and Verstappen are fighting behind in that corner.
Well, I think you'll be very happy to know that having read the stewards report, they start off with Hamilton was attempting to overtake Verstappen.
Oh, please. At
Right,
turn
okay.
4,
Went
you're
off
talking
track.
about.
Yeah, turn
They
4.
say that at turn 4.
And did not return the position. So
Oh, that
none
just
of
made me
this
even
is
more
based. So I think we're all going to very boringly agree, probably in different terms, as to how completely wrong the idea that Hamilton was overtaking Verstappen or Verstappen was overtaking Hamilton. The two of them were axle to axle going into turn 4, axle to
Yep.
axle. And we see Hamilton on the outside lock up, and he shoots very wide, and TV follows him. Now, what I did was I went back and I looked at Antonelli's onboards
Mm-hmm.
because I wanted to know how he got ahead of Russell. And you know what I saw? You know who else locked up in the entry to turn 4? Max did. The both of them waited
Yeah.
so late
Well-
trying to outbrake each other.
I-
They both went off track. Max was
Thank you.
fully, completely, 100% off track. All four wheels, the wrong
What?
side of the white
Wait,
line.
what?
He came
He was,
back onto
yes.
the track. Yeah,
Ma-
100%.
At turn 4, when Hamilton went to the escape road, Verstappen was all 4 wheels off track.
Correct.
Yes,
He was.
correct. 100%.
Ah, no, I'm livid.
Well, can I just quickly add that there's Matt said that, oh, this is going to be boring because we're all in agreement. No, there is a disagreement, and it's all three of us disagree with the stewards here. So the stewards on this occasion, they have implied from that statement that Matt read that they believe Max Verstappen did not have to give the position back to Hamilton. So they think that it was fair at turn 1, 2, 3. Okay, fair enough. But it gets worse at turn 4 here because, like Matt said, Max runs off the road. Lewis wasn't given a penalty for not using the runoff road that they were required to use. He was given a penalty for gaining what's called an advantage. Now, can I prove in a second? I'll let you respond to that. But there was no advantage gained from Lewis Hamilton, and the sector times reveal this. He lost time.
To Leclerc. He lost time to Leclerc.
No, he lost time. Oh, yeah, correct. Yeah, correct. Well, no, Spanners. He lost time compared to his previous Sector 2 time. Because Sector 2 begins right before the braking zone of Turn 4. So it's an accurate measurement that in those corners, Hamilton lost 1.2 seconds compared to his previous lap. Now, what advantage was gained if you've lost 1.2 seconds? There is no advantage. I don't understand it.
Okay, so I need some time to digest. So we will be moving on in a second after Matt's point. But just so you know, like I want to talk about the guys who did great up front, the McLaren battle. But it is my choice. It is my creative choice that we talk about the controversial big ticket items first and up front. You know, the ones that we've all been arguing about on social media. So that's my decision. But we'll definitely get to all the other stuff. Sorry, Matt. Carry on.
Well, first of all, going into turn 4, because you're right, I did go back and look at the live timings. The distance between Hamilton and Max measured on the GPS was something like maybe in the thousandths of a second. I mean, how you say that at that point, either person is ahead enough to be being overtaken when they're side by side, that the overtake has already started. So that bugs me right off the bat. Second thing that bugs me, and Jono has mentioned sector times, which I think are inferior to my personal measurement here, is that using position when the other person then gets involved in other things that slow them down. In this case, Max going off track and coming back on, and then fighting with Russell and going practically off track the other direction through turn 5, meant that he created a gap for him and Russell and Behrman and Antonelli that made it look longer to Hamilton. But if you measure correctly, Hamilton's gap to Leclerc going into turn 4,
Yeah.
and then coming out into turn 5, he was actually the same. He was actually the same distance away. Actually, turn 6 is the one. He was actually, he lost about a second relative to Leclerc by the time he gets to turn 6. But wait, there's more.
No, I've already made enough.
For the low price of, there's more. By the time he gets to turn 12, which is really the next big braking zone, he's given up another full half a second.
Wow.
So it's clear that his intent, right? His intent was not to gain an advantage, but simply to restore status quo ante.
So he's lost, Matt, 1.5 seconds roughly is what you're saying. So there was no advantage gained. He's lost 1.5 seconds. And you also mentioned that Verstappen also locked up. Now, I looked at Verstappen's. I'm going to go back to sector times because that's as simple as I'm going to be. You're much smarter than me. And 4 seconds. Don't give Matt credit. Sorry, Matt. Just ignore what I just said.
Don't do that.
So,
never encourage me.
Verstappen lost 4 seconds in the second sector. Now, fair enough. Verstappen, locked up, lost time. Everybody's squabbling for position. So does that mean Lewis now has to brake and stay at a standstill and wait another 2.5, 3 seconds for them to catch up? He already gave up the advantage that he gained. And so the argument here is I don't understand. This is where it gets silly. Like, what happens if all 4 cars spin and crash at turn 4? Does Lewis now have to spin and do a burnout and wait for them to get back on track? Like, well, come on, what are the rules here?
I see the logic of that. Obviously, that's an extreme version of that. I'll let Mark in the live chat end and say, well, if he went all 4 wheels off, then surely Verstappen also didn't take the correct, runoff procedure. Not sure if that holds water, because I think the race director notes will be if you go off like near the apex of turn 4, and I think Verstappen was a little bit further around. But yeah, for all our sanity, honestly, I'm asking the Discord, is there any counter to this? There's nothing coming in yet, but I'm happy to hear your arguments, and maybe I'll counter them on TikTok, or you'll change my mind. So you can message us feedback at missedapex.net, and that will come to me and Matt.
And I just want to finish with, I think I kind of understand why this is happening. And again, you talk about the rules, and very much they've made a nod in this direction, but very much this was a battle between Lewis and Max that carried on for multiple turns, including turns that weren't chicanes. And yet in every instance, what we have is the stewards looking at each thing as its own discrete occurrence, without the context of the full narrative from the start of turn 1 to the exit of turn 6. I think had they done so, they would have reached a different conclusion, but it doesn't seem that that's the current mode of evaluating things.
Right. Camera 1 on spanners. So we are going to move on from that. And yeah, those 2 incidents were definitely water cooler moments. I loved the excitement of turn 1 at Mexico, and it does tend to deliver, but then normally at Mexico, then things really fizzle out. And yeah, I'm not saying this was the most thrilling race to race action. And when we did really have a culmination of the whole Grand Prix strategies, weird virtual safety car that wasn't warranted, in my opinion, Carlos Sainz spun off, and then immediately, like a good boy, like a F1 Boy Scout, spun around, did his spin, and went, I'm in the way, go to the runoff area. And then after that, that's when they called the VSC. And I don't know whether the race director was going, phew, we almost had some racing action there. Whew, we put a stop to that kind of thing.
They did their best to hide the racing action from us. No, I think it was literally, how long has it been since we've been called the Ferrari International Assistance? Where's Verstappen relative to Leclerc? Virtual safety car.
Yeah. So I really admired Verstappen's charge against Leclerc there, and it's definitely one of those ones where you go, oh, phew. So I was gunning for Leclerc in that battle. It looked like a hopeless battle. The safety car definitely saved Leclerc there. But I really want to focus in on the championship fight now and the connotations for that. So we had McLaren versus Piastri. Sorry, we had Norris versus Piastri with the McLarens, and it could not have been a more stark difference in weekends. So you had Norris coming off the back of performing well in the car, but being outdriven by the Verstappen Red Bull package. And you had Piastri coming into this, and I am very sensitive that we have an Australian on the panel, so don't
Be
think
careful.
I'm sensitive. Yeah,
Yeah.
but we've had Piastri just coming off of a nightmare of not being comfortable with the car, all those mistakes at Baku, and then going into this weekend with a 14-point lead that would look good if it had not been a 34-point lead at one point. Just looked all at sea throughout free practice, did not look good in qualifying, and then suddenly just ends up like 6/10 down, I think it was in the end, and all at sea. And in a race where Lando Norris won by 30 seconds, Piastri made up a couple of points in his recovery drive. Australia, like, I have sympathy. Jono, are you okay? Is Australia okay? Like, are you having like circles in your neighborhoods? Is everyone coming together? How do you feel?
I feel great. I'm an unbiased F1 fan, well, apart from Hamilton, as you can all tell. But
Sorry.
I don't think Australia's okay. A lot of people I know, a lot of the Aussies are
Not okay.
struggling
Yeah.
mentally. There's been accusations of,
Yeah.
oh, they've sabotaged Oscar's car now. They're not driving the same car. There's been that kind of business. I'll reject those rumors in a moment's time because I actually spoke to. Well, let's get through that
Oh,
now.
no.
So
No,
the
let's do that.
claims that, yeah, the claims that all of a sudden Piastri's car is inferior to Lando's is false. I spoke to a McLaren engineer and I asked him, "Is that true?" Just go and ask the team. That's the best way to buff these or reject these rumors. And he basically told me, why would they give one car to Lando that's quicker than Oscar's? They haven't really developed this car for most of the end of the season. It's not like they can just put on the best bits on Lando's car and then they can't on Oscar's.
Because they
So
haven't.
that's not true.
Red Bull
Yeah,
have brought upgrades nearly every race.
yeah, exactly. And so there was another claim that maybe after his Baku and Austin crashes, that maybe Oscar's had to go to old components. That's not true either, as far as I was told. I could also be lied to. Just be matter of you never
That's
know.
true.
The teams aren't going to reveal their true hand here. There were claims that Lando's engine was turned up, Oscar's wasn't in Q3. Looking at the data, it's not true. I mean, they're pretty much. Oscar at one point on the straight was actually quicker, I think, on the straights. Ironically, because I believe that he was running more wing.
Yeah, I saw
Was
that.
the claim?
I saw that side by side. You know, they do these amazing like overlap things now with the ghost car stuff. Like, it's so good that we've got that, and you can really see
Yeah.
it was faster wear. So that was the thing I was looking for. Like, does he have some kind of engine deficit? And it's, I don't know, if anything, Piastri was doing okay at the end of the straights compared to Norris. Matt.
Well, yeah, and this just gets down to the nature of what these drivers are the very best at. And low speed corners, Norris. Low grip surface, Norris. And as Stella said in an interview post-quali, it's very much a car issue. The car is very finicky in these conditions, in these low grip conditions. Lando has a lot of experience and has figured it out. But he said, we are going to sit down and adjust Oscar's driving to see if we can't get a better result. And then,
so not the car, the driving.
And then after the race today, they said, we have some new tools in the toolbox, and we think Oscar will do better the next time we encounter these circumstances, meaning they were able to work with him and show him the techniques he needed to employ to get more out of the car.
But they've already been doing that. And Oscar said that post-race that the last one or two race weekends, he's having to adjust his driving style to something he's not used to. So he's now having to change mid-season which doesn't make any sense to me, because why doesn't he not just drive the same that he'd been all year, where he was at perfection, it looked like, at some point?
Yeah, I have some sympathy, Matt, for the Piastri fans, because it seemed like such an epic drop-off all of a sudden, like since Zandvoort. Like, I'm not saying that they should be making the conspiracy theories, but I think it's reasonable to go, has he got a cracked chassis? Did they make a change that doesn't suit him?
Oh, that's very reasonable. But as we all know, the actual narrative of what happened was they brought a car that didn't suit Norris to the beginning of the season. that had a very specific problem that not just Norris, but both drivers identified relative to the feel that they were getting from the front of the car. And now they fixed that. And I believe they've still been working on it. But once they fixed it, this is where we see the Norris thing change. But the other thing Stella said is, look, it's pretty simple. Medium high speed turns, that's where Piastri is better than Norris. Low grip, low speed turns, that's where Norris has a clear advantage on Piastri. I mean, we've just gotten to circuits that suit Norris with a car that he can now do the best he can do in. And he had neither of those at the beginning of the season.
Norris said post-race as well, he'd been struggling with the car this season. For most of the season, we didn't feel like we'd seen Norris at his best, but he said he wanted to avoid using that as an excuse. Now that he's winning, he feels like comfortable to admit that because he's strung a few good
post-qualifying interview, wasn't it, on the sofas? He was on fire in that interview. That was so cool. And like they said, like, are you going to have to do lift and coast, Lyco tomorrow? He's like, ask the Ferraris.
That's actually funny that was good. And it's good seeing, you see how comfortable he is mentally too, Lando Norris, at this stage of the season. Whereas Oscar Piastri, every interview, every time you see him publicly, he just seems not miserable, but dejected. He doesn't seem at one with the car ever since the Baku crash, had the false start, and then you saw him trying way too hard to make up positions, crashed. He's just lost his confidence. And I think he needs to find his way to end the season because for the first time in 15 rounds, Lando Norris leads the Drivers' Championship.
I don't want to pretend I'm an expert in driving styles or tyres, so I will put this next one to Matt. But I was watching a lot of the practice and qualifying sessions, and I can't remember who did it, but someone put on Twitter the side-by-side of the qualifying laps. They are so different. The approaches to the corners and the driving styles is incredibly different. So Lando Norris is more like me. That's how I drive. I'm more like the Lando Norris in this situation. But it's the way I tend to drive. Like, I try and get all the stuff done early. I've been told I have a very kind of smooth driving style, like our Kyle Powers. And I try and do like minimal input. So like I spread the inputs out throughout the corner. And that's what Lando Norris was doing. And for Piastri, he's taking, as you're going down the straight, he seems to jink into the corner earlier. He's heading for that apex. He's trying to wrestle it at the slowest point, which is more like our champion Danny Henny does, and I think like Verstappen does. I'm not saying one style is better than the other, but I kept seeing Piastri like get on the power and then having opposite lock skidding out on acceleration and stuff because of this more aggressive approach. And so that might work at other tracks. It didn't look like it was working here. But I'm going to ask you, Matt, here. Judge me on my tyre knowledge. Is it because, although that wasn't causing tyre wear, I think Piastri may have been spiking the thermal degradation of his tyres during his quali laps?
That's entirely possible. In other words, you're talking about there's two overheatings. You can overheat the tread temporarily.
Yeah.
That'll cool.
Heat the core.
But if you get into the bulk of the tire and overheat it, then you do lose performance. And it seems like really the track itself was traction limited. So here is this would be a track where you look at that and say, the idea of getting it stopped and turned as soon as possible and on throttle might not be as good as being able to carry a higher corner speed, so that you can have a more gentle application of throttle on the other side. It can also be down to things like the ERS maps and the engine maps they're using. But fundamentally, Oscar's style is what you would expect from someone his age. Is very aggressive. He has the reflexes to deal with it. He's not using experience. He's like, it's just like bang, go, catch. But in a track like Mexico, where just like spinning the wheel 2 or 3 times on exit will cost you down that long straight, all the way down that long straight, so many tenths, that very smooth, that ability to feel the front and both axles properly in alignment and working. That's where your lap time comes from.
Getting a bit of grief from the patron chat. James
ripping into you.
G says, how humble of Spanners to compare the driver leading the World Drivers' Championship to himself. I'm very humble. To be honest, I think I'm the most humble podcast.
Oh, please.
There. But there's this definite like driving style. You can see the differences between the drivers. I think it's worth doing in like your F1 viewing to look at these side by sides because they are so stark in the way that they're approaching this corner that it's genuinely fascinating. So I'm also this is my instinct, right? As someone who's been gunning for Norris this season and against Piastri in general, sorry, Australia, is that I do feel like the gap is unnaturally large. So I do understand why people are starting to go, what on earth is going on? You know, if this sort of qualifying gap had stayed like it was in through practice, so it was kind of like 2-3 tenths, you go, okay, that feels like that's a normal kind of teammate gap. Out to 6 tenths, you go, well, that's starting to feel like, hey, what's going on here? Either he's like really cracked, or maybe he's had a little bit of a dip and Norris has really taken a step forward because he had a big step forward from, I think, Q2 to Q3, if I remember correctly. But John, I just get it. I understand why Australians are looking at that and going, something's not right.
I wonder if they've closed one side of the garage off and now Piastri doesn't have access to Lando Norris's setup. So there's also that claim. But also...
Or Norris is like sandbagging a little because he's aware of that.
Potentially. But also, what doesn't make sense here is why change driving style for a car that hasn't had an upgrade for 2 months? I just don't understand it. Why do they need to change Oscar's style that he was winning with? And it's not like the car's like, oh, it's different now. We've introduced this new front wing and this and blah, blah, blah. It's like the car's almost, I'm not saying it's exactly the same, but it's,
they
just
put
doesn't
brakes
make
on development.
any sense.
Yeah, Matt.
It doesn't.
They're not changing his driving style in every circumstance. This is very circuit specific to like the Singapore, to the Mexico, to these sorts of low grip, slow turns. This is where he still hasn't figured it out as much as Norris has. So this is not a full-time thing, but I'll throw up an interesting counterexample before we move on, which is everyone is looking at this and going like, what's happened to Piastri? The answer is, well, they just fixed the car for Norris, so it worked. And then we're at the circuits where Norris is stronger than Piastri at the beginning of the year, it was vice versa. But let's take Sainz and Albon. Beginning of the year, Albon was looking amazing. Sainz is absolutely thrashing him now. And you don't hear everyone going, well, Williams has tanked Albon's car for Sainz. I mean, granted, they're not leading the championship.
And also, Hamilton is like now much more on par with Leclerc as well.
Yeah, this is just normal across a 24 race season with all these different types of circuits.
There was also some outrage that Piastri has to miss practice 1 at Abu Dhabi for the rookie driver. You know, he has to vacate his seat, basically. And they said, why would you do that when you might be going for the championship? Well, yeah, that's a little bit annoying. But here's the no panic case for Aussies and Oscar Piastri fans. At Mexico, 6 of the 9 drivers who stepped out of the car for FP1 out-qualified their teammate.
Oh, that's
so by the time it gets to qualifying, if you stepped out of FP1, I thought, oh, maybe all 9 would struggle. No, it's actually worked in their favor to have less track time.
It's also 6 out of 8, really, if we discard the Red Bull situation. And I could go off on one about the reaction to, what's the lad's name? Lingard?
Arvid Lindblad.
Lindblad, sorry. Yes. Lindblad's out-qualified or being faster than Tsunoda. Oh, God, I really could go off on one here, but like they were on completely different run plans at different points of track evolution and in different cars, in my opinion. So that's my version of the conspiracy theory. So I'm judging the Piastri fans for saying it's a different car when I have no legs to stand on. I'm in a very glass house because I've been saying that about Perez. I've been saying that about Tsunoda. Temporarily, it was the same car when it was Lawson. But yeah, so I understand that I'm on somewhat fragile ground with that kind of argument. Right, let's move on. And there's 2 things I really want to talk about. I think the bigger one is probably Mercedes before we go to the podium. So I'll just go to the Verstappen thing here. My praise of Verstappen is around the most difficult circumstances and consistency. So he can consistently hit the drive well. Like there are people out there who can do a good lap, as well as Max Verstappen. Just like I could hit one putt as good as a pro golfer, but he is consistently ruthless. The other area in which I think it's very, very fair to praise Max Verstappen is in the lower optimal situations. So when the conditions are bad, like when it's fully wet, there is not a better driver than Max Verstappen in F1 history in fully wet conditions, because you've got to find something extra. And with Stella, look at Jono's lip going out there.
No.
I'll stick by that.
He's good. I was going to add he's up there. I don't think there's no single greatest. I think it's hard. There's different eras and everything, but he's up there.
I'm calling. I've been watching F1 since 1986.
He's amazing.
He's the most impressive, like, full wet tire conditions driver. Like intermediate, I'm going to give that to Lewis Hamilton. We can have a whole fight about that.
Senna. But
it's when there's the suboptimal conditions. So for Stella to talk about Piastri going, well, he struggles in it's not a big deal. He just struggles when it's low grip and it's hot temperatures. Oh, you mean when it's difficult? And you go, yeah, that's the best drivers show their skills when it's most difficult. The other scenario when it can be difficult is just when your car is not working and you have to dig something out. This was a poor weekend for Red Bull. This was a poor weekend for the car. This was a poor weekend for them finding balance and setup. And they even said they were still throwing things at the car for qualifying and it didn't work. Yet it comes to the race, and I believe him when he said he didn't think there was going to be race pace. He is still digging something out. They go for an alternative strategy. They go for the soft tires to the end. Not only does he make the soft tires last a good distance, but he's put himself in a good position with the medium stint. It looked like it was a bad strategy because they were dropping back, and for Tsunoda, who wasn't that far off the pace of Verstappen, it was a very difficult strategy to hang on to those mediums for as long as he did. Then he goes on the softs and goes on the charge and gets a podium. Like, this is up there for me with one of Verstappen's like all-time greatest races, where we could see he might have had better races in this where he was out 60 seconds in front, but we can't tell. This one, we could see how incredible he was to get to what should have been a P2.
Well, the flat spots and lockups potentially in the first stint on the mediums may have cost him pace and cost him grip on the tire. And then as soon as he was on a fresh soft for that second stint, he nursed those tires to the end, drove one of the all-time stints of the season of his career. Because for some reason, and Matt, we saw McLaren with Piastri bait almost the entire top 10 into a two-stop race. And Verstappen said, well, I'm staying out there because my tires are good, and managed to score a podium out of it.
What very rapidly emerged was the pecking order of tires. Was nobody really liked the mediums, but they worked. The softs were just the star of the show. And if you wanted to really make your driver hate you, like Albon, you just put him on the hards and then ask him how things were going.
Didn't he say it was the worst ever strategy?
They're like, how's the tire, Alex? And he's like, it's terrible. It's awful on the front axle. It's awful on the back axle. This is miserable. And they're like, well, don't worry. It's the hard tire. We only have about 43 more laps. You need to drive it before you can be on the soft tire like everybody else who's having fun now. But you mentioned that, and it seemed to be like sort of a genius move. They baited both Mercedes, why Mercedes did you not leave one driver out?
So this is the Piastri pit.
This is the second pit stop, lap 47. Like, why did you not leave one driver out on the tire running and then cover him off with the other driver? And my initial reaction is because Russell felt hard done by ever since Antonelli took the place away from him lap 6. I think Mercedes were like, we're just going to be fair with the drivers. Because if we do that and one driver gains a big advantage over the other, like if Russell stays out and we pit Antonelli, well, then Antonelli never gets that place back. And since we're not in the race anyway, we would rather keep order within our own house. But remind yourself, Max was running 7th when they did this. Where did he finish?
Finished on the podium. I mean, what a drive.
He finished 3rd. So where was Piastri? Oh, he was in 6th. So Piastri gained 2 points on Norris, but he lost 9 points, relatively speaking, to Max, going from 7th to 3rd. So it was an interesting strategy choice to me from McLaren. They gave Piastri a little closer to Norris, but they let Max get a lot closer to the both of them than he otherwise would have been.
It's funny too because even Red Bull, 1/3 through the race, spanners had no idea what strategy they were on because GP on the radio accidentally clicked the wrong button and said, "Are we on a 1-stop or 2-stop?" And Max said,
That's
everyone can hear you. Don't give this stuff
Started
away."
serving the margaritas too early in the Red Bull paddock.
funny. But that
That was
happened.
good.
That's amazing that hasn't happened before. Like, how come that has never happened before? But that
Yeah.
brings us into this really fascinating battle, basically, for the podium. And Ollie Behrman, you have my attention, Ollie Behrman. I've not been his biggest fan, and this isn't going to be great for Matt. It does seem like Ollie has got the measure of Esteban at the moment. How are you feeling about that?
It doesn't bother me. Why would it bother me?
Look at Matt trying not to cry.
No. I mean, it was, I was actually happy for Haas this weekend as a team.
Yeah.
And so the worst part of that decision was that it effectively ended any chance Behrman had at a podium.
Yeah. So we were lucky enough to have Mike Caulfield in our Patreon Discord, who was the obviously ex strategist for Haas. He was the head strategist at Haas, very emotionally invested in Haas. And when they pitted, he said they threw away the podium. Now, I'm not sure if I agree with that, but they definitely threw away the outside chance.
The chance. Exactly.
No.
Threw away the chance. No,
look
because
at where
Verstappen would have
Verstappen
passed the map.
Look at where Verstappen would have finished without the Mercedes clearing the way and Piastri clearing the way for him to drive through it. The buffer.
Matt, what if no one pitted?
If no one pitted, I think Behrman probably finishes third, or maybe Russell passes him in the last couple of laps. It just really depends on if he could have maintained the tires. That's something we don't really know.
No.
It's ironic, Spanners, because McLaren have all this, they've been doing these pit fakes, when they throw the pit crew out there and then they don't actually come in. It's the most obvious fake. I think they need to stop doing it. The irony is, by actually pitting, they faked everyone out. So it's the actual pit stop that's baited everyone into it and not the actual fake itself, which is actually kind of funny. So fair enough. I mean, it's a good point. I thought that I was with you, Spanners, for a sec. I thought that they were not going to get the podium anyway. But now that Max has proved that, not Max, Matt, or Max actually, whichever one you want, Matt, he's now proven that that Haas could have actually scored their first podium. And the pit stops were clutch. Best pit stops of the year from Haas too. Well done.
Yeah, let me get my head around this. So Behrman has the P3 place. So he has a podium there. Piastri can't get past on track, so he rolls the dice.
Yeah.
Mercedes are determined to cover that off with Antonelli. They do a poor pit stop, which lets Piastri past. Russell, does he follow Behrman in, or had he already decided that he was coming in? But Behrman goes first and decides to go. I still think like if there was all four stay out, Verstappen hits that DRS train, no way he finishes on the podium, no way he attacks Leclerc. Behrman ends up on the podium unless Russell can overtake him. But on that stint they were all on the mediums. Behrman.
They were all on the mediums.
They were all on the mediums. Mm-hmm. Russell after, and I'll talk about the radio conversations in a bit, but Russell, after he got past Antonelli, was not catching Behrman. So if they had just stayed in that position, I think Behrman gets a podium. Now, luckily, Behrman he knew that P4 was amazing. He celebrated P4 like it was a win. His dad also was celebrating P4 like it was a win. Not taking anything away from Haas. Great result for Haas. Amazing result for Behrman. But we're greedy, I guess. We're wondering what more could we have? We could have had more.
Well, you love.
You go, Matt. Sorry.
I was going to say, you love the underdog story. And this is what Behrman is. He's the rookie making good, and the team that's they fell down to ninth. They've really had their struggles. This last updated floor has finally made both the drivers happy. And you could see it in qualifying, the improved performance of Ocon in qualifying. He missed out by a couple of hundredths on being in Q3. And they both had good race pace. And you asked me, do I feel bad? No, because him holding up Piastri and Russell and Antonelli on their fresh tires with his really old medium tires essentially created the gap for Behrman to go head to head with Russell on the pit stop in. Like he held up Antonelli and Piastri, Ocon did, for Behrman. So it was a team, as Komatsu said, it was a team effort all the way around. So you gotta embrace it. They moved a whole step up in the Constructors Championship, which Spanners doesn't care about at all, but it does come with money attached. It does come with money attached. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it podium would have been nice. Realistically, even if things were status quo, Russell going after him, I don't know. I don't know if he makes it all the way to the end.
Side note, Ocon fought like a lion. And he did try and like defend and play his part in that. But we do have to go to the Mercedes situation where Russell ends up behind Antonelli, which I'm sure he's like, horrified with, decides he's got more pace and he wants to go after Behrman and go for the podium. And we just get this absolutely desperate radio exchange where he's saying, like, I'm faster, I can go past, I'll give the place back if I can't get past him. And his team engineer is going, okay, I'm hearing what you're saying and I understand. And just so you know, your team orders requests are important to us, but understand in this difficult COVID time, call queues and user demand is very high. But honestly, like, they were binning him off for like 5 laps while he was getting increasingly desperate. Did Mercedes get this wrong?
And they ended up in no man's land and got it completely wrong. They spent way too long to make a decision. I don't know why teams in this situation don't make decisions quicker, because in team sports, Spanners, you'll design a team and you have your smart people, and then you have maybe the athletes who are, wild and exciting, but they're maybe not so smart. You have to combine these people together to win, right? In Formula One, you just have engineers who look at screens and data and don't make decisions on feel. Like, who was sitting there? If I'm a driver and George Russell, in the first 20 seconds, I know the decision is swap us, let's go. But it took them that long. And I think it's costing teams when they it's like, even after the race, they said this was a calculated decision. But it was too calculated. Just make a decision on feel.
Matt, you are Mercedes. Yes. Russell's behind. He starts saying, let me go. Let me have a chance. What do you do?
Well, hindsight being 2020, I let him go. Essentially, lap 34, the two of them managed to pass Tsunoda. Lap 35, Piastri has essentially caught Russell and has DRS. Russell is in the DRS of Antonelli. Antonelli is out of the DRS of Behrman, and it stays that way until the swap is made. And the whole time, you're burning up Russell's tires. You're burning up Russell's brakes, which his engineer was saying, but you need to save these things. And he's like, I've got Piastri on my gearbox. What do you really want me to do? I'm faster than the guy ahead of me. If you'd already have let me by, I'd have had more tires and brakes to go after him with. And let's remember, he outqualified Antonelli and he was ahead until Verstappen, coming off of lap 6, turn 6, his off track takes Russell wide out of turn 6, and both Behrman and Antonelli zip up by them. And that's how Russell was behind Antonelli for the whole race. He must have been fuming because he couldn't pass him, but he knew he was faster based on just the first phase of the race. Man, it's just like, you just can't write these stories sometimes. They're so good.
Oh, okay. So I'm not sure whether what I said came across on.
Oh, it did. And the FIA is onto you, Spanners, and that is a penalty.
I think, like, in 11 years of missed Apex, that is my first unmitigated swear on the.
That's right.
YouTube.
That's a drive-through penalty.
But on the podcast version, I can beep that out. But like, it's 1 o'clock in the morning. It's 1 o'clock in the morning here in the UK. But it's just. I remember 2014 and 2015 and 2016 when Mercedes want them to hold station, they go, stay off the curbs, guys. The engines, I hope. You won't believe this. I would want you guys to be fighting all the way to the end. Like, that's what I would love. Believe me, go and attack your teammate would be my thing. But we do need you to, like, cool the engine a little bit. And Mercedes, they do this. Stay off the curbs. And when that call came in, like, you've got to cool your brakes. And he went, no, I've got to get past this guy. And they go, well, I want your brakes to last. It was so like parent to child. It was just like, oh, do you not want any breaks at the end of the race? Oh, well, okay then. Well, I guess if you know better than me, you can just use up all your breaks now. And it came across to me quite condescending and patronizing and wrong. They were trying to call off the battle. They had decided that no, Antonelli had that position. We're not doing team orders to let you go. And the reasons they were giving Verstappen were false. I'm calling that. They were false, and Russell rightly called it out, and he went on there and he took a very, very authoritative tone. Look, and this is while driving at hundreds of miles an hour. This is the situation. This is what I'll do in this scenario. This is why I should do this. Stop it. Let me go.
Credit to Antonelli, because George Russell has driven a phenomenal season. Both himself and Max Verstappen, arguably the two best drivers on the grid this season. I don't think that's a fair argument to make. And Antonelli hasn't been matched with George Russell for most of the year. Now, the reason I'm bringing this up is Antonelli was actually not too bad this weekend in terms of pace in comparison to where he's been previously. So maybe Mercedes haven't had to make decisions like this, because George Russell has had to be fighting with other teams and other cars, and so they might not be used to this as much as they were in the past with two drivers on equal terms. So maybe Mercedes are rusty. Can we say you're rusty in terms of making decisions between an intra-team battle?
It's not a good. They didn't do good. They didn't do it good. It's like either stick to your guns one way or the other. The solution they chose was keep Russell there long enough to just burn his tires up and be in a bad position. I think Russell correctly advocated for his position. He's very clearly the number one driver, and I think he deserved that team order, which is, hey, you guys know I'm not in the habit of defending Russell, and I'm not in the habit of defending team orders, but he is the clear number one. He's your number one. Do you trust him or not? He said, I'm charging for the podium. I'm going for it. Obviously, there was a bit of sass in there with, would you want me to just let the McLaren past? And the team engineers there going, no thanks. It was quite like, are they not mates? Are they not pals?
But sometimes you argue with your mates sometimes, right? Like, it's out of love. Sometimes in competition, you do
sound like mate.
Come on, this is classic Mercedes corporate. Toto was happy that his little protege was ahead and he was going to finish well.
That's a hot take.
And the next thing you know, here's George.
He wasn't even there.
Putting him in an uncomfortable. That's why it took so long. They had to call him on the phone. We always accuse
Toto.
Ferrari of this, but literally this was an argument that was happening above the race engineer's head.
I buy that.
The reason it took so long is they had to find the person who could actually agree to it in whatever corporate structure they have.
Gigi says, I think that Mercedes don't appreciate some of George Russell's antics. I agree with you, Gigi. I think it looked bad for that level of like public, like it's like airing your dirty laundry, isn't it? You know, we were sat in a cafe, and it's a place we go regularly, so we know people there. And me and my wife, we're just having like quite a heated discussion, and it's fine. Like we can have a heated debate, but I had to say to her, I said, honey, like you look like you're so mad at me. Like your eyes, you look like you're about to like punch me in the face. And she's like, oh, I didn't realize. I'm like, yeah. Just be aware that like we're in a public space here. And I think that the phone call might have come through. Actually, this looks bad. So the lesser of two evils is, okay, you've got your way. Go and chase. It is not a good look for Russell that then he sat there and actually lost time to Behrman after that. But I'm sure he could fairly argue that it was far too late. Good. I think actually we're close to getting onto the podium and our awards. I know, Jono, you've got to go. So before you go, where can we catch you? And also, I would like to know, where can people see you doing your TV stuff where you're on the news going, oh, no, a wombat just fell from a tree and punched a kangaroo. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was my news story last night. Actually, wombat. You got it wrong. Two wombats.
Two wombats. Yes. Gang up. A gang related to wombat.
Well, I'm heading straight to Channel 10 now. Work for 10 News Melbourne, doing some sports reporting for them, which is cool. So if you're in Australia, you can check that out whenever I do stuff. Did a lot of supercars on the weekend. If you watch the action there on the Gold Coast, that was wild. Yeah, it was good stuff. And obviously at Johnny S8,
Link in the show notes.
JONNYESS8 on
Don't even
X or
bother
Instagram.
saying.
Yes,
We'll do the links in the show
it'll
notes.
it'll be in the show notes. Can I at least do? Are we going to the podium? Because I want to do that before.
Okay,
I head
Steve,
off.
can we run the podium bumper if you have it to hand? And this is where I say things like the Mexican Grand Prix exceeded our expectations. They were very, very low, but Mexico delivered. And the championship battle is closer than ever. In terms of championship battles, this is an all-time season for tension and drama with the season running. So we're going to do both of these for Jono. We're going to ask Jono who missed the Apex for you. Hang on, do we need the bumper? Steve, do the bumper thing.
No, you missed the Apex.
We're going to do it double for you, Jono, so we'll get both in for you, then we'll do it again. Go for it.
All right, okay. I feel privileged about this. First one, I got two here. So for people who want to know why the virtual safety car was called at the end of the race, which missed the Apex for me, it was because apparently stewards reported a fire for Carlos Sainz's car. That annoyed me. And because I heard about the fire, I can't go with that anymore because I realize it's for safety reasons. I'm assuming someone's going to take the Lawson incident.
Yeah, no,
So
that
I am
100%. That was my miss the Apex. It's scary. Go and look it up. Like, do you remember? I think it was in Korea where that guy was just pegging it down the start-finish straight, trying to get off track before the cars got to turn one. This was madness. I think it was in the stadium section. Two marshals just under green flag running across, and Lawson was terrified and was just saying, like, I could have killed those guys, and he's absolutely right. So I will nick that as my missed Apex.
No, you will. Okay, I'm literally stealing everybody's right now. So I'll just go with mine finally. And it is, I don't know if this is true, but apparently Fernando Alonso was told to let Lance Stroll past. As soon as he did, retired the car with an apparent brakes issue. Now, he may have had a brakes failure, a brakes issue. George Russell was struggling with his brakes, as we mentioned just now. So why is this becoming a common thing that Fernando Alonso consistently retires his car as soon as he's
becoming?
It's for 10 years.
This has
It's
been the
a thing.
case since McLaren Honda. He has been doing this. If he's not feeling it, like for all his like, oh, I am a warrior. I'm born of the samurai spirit. As soon as like he's not feeling it, he just goes, nah, I'm done.
I'm done. Exactly. So that's missed the Apex on the proviso that the brakes failure isn't true. If it is true, then I'll come up with another one.
There's just enough.
Email us.
That it's not true. And so have you got hit the Steve? Let's roll the hit the Apex award. The good thing. Never mind, I can't hear the music. So, Jono, who hit the Apex for you?
It'll be, and I apologize to both of you because I know you probably both want this. George Russell wearing a wrestling mask on a Friday had to step out of his car, give a rookie his car. Vesti drove his car in FP1, and George Russell said, "You know what? I'm going to disguise myself with one of these wrestling Mexican masks." Apologies if you know the actual name for them and you're Mexican. Please comment. Please let us know, whether on Spotify or even on YouTube.
No, they're standard.
And he sat next to fans in the grandstand who had no clue that this was George Russell, walked past fans wearing George Russell shirts, said, oh, he's a great driver, and then all of a sudden took it off as he got back in the paddock and said, it's me. So I thought that was really cool from George, and it showed a bit of personality, and I love when drivers show personality in sports and in Formula One. And George Russell, who's very technical minded and very smart guy, that kind of stuff, posh, I think is fair to say. It's good to see him bring out that side of him, which I think was very enjoyable.
Yeah, was the Behrman versus Russell fight the poshest on-track action of Formula One history? Jono, do me a favor, leave your Zoom call open so we don't mess with Uncle Steve. Stick it on mute, and we will catch you later. Go and click the links for all of Jonathan Simon's social media and stuff. Matt, Trumpets, I'm going to ask you, who missed the Apex for you?
Oh,
this is
no, you missed
really
the
good
Apex.
question, because I've been sitting here
Steve's playing
thinking
the
about
bumper.
it for
Steve's playing
the
bumper,
last
music.
2 minutes.
Oh, sorry about that. Right, slight miscommunication there with the bumper. Start again, because the great graphics and music was going on there. It's gone now. We're good.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm starting again. I've thought about this a lot, and it's going to be challenging, but I'm going to go McLaren calling the two-stop for Piastri, because I don't see gaining 2 points on Norris being worth giving up 9 to Max.
Yes.
I just don't see it. I understand why they made that choice, because they were looking at his gap to Norris. And they're like, this gives us a chance, which happened, of getting ahead, of moving you ahead. But, and he chose to roll the dice. I don't think they anticipated the Mercedes reaction and what Verstappen would do. And it just has brought Max a little bit more into the frame than he really would have been. He would have finished like, what, 6th or 7th? Yeah.
Yeah. McLaren, they sometimes, I think, miss these little things. So obviously they're trying to get Piastri the best position possible. So you can't begrudge them that. There's 3 cars ahead and we've got to try and overtake them. So that mission is accepted. The bigger picture is, if we do this and Verstappen stays out, he ends up on the podium. And so you go, right. So from Piastri's point of view, is he focused on Verstappen or Norris? And I think he's focused on Norris. So therefore, in his mind that's the correct thing. Obviously, if Verstappen ends up winning the championship by that differential of points, then that turns out to be a bad decision. That's a
very bad one. Yeah.
Really good point. But also, if Verstappen beats Norris as well by that differential of points, then they have to look at that and say that was a bad strategy call. And they don't seem to have really clicked into this is title running now, because they were saying to Norris, what do you think? And this is for the second car. They told him this is for the other car. Would you prefer, if you were going to stop again, would you prefer softs or mediums? They're asking that to Norris, who is taking the championship lead from Piastri. And they go, what tyre would you take? And he's like, probably hards. Like if you're Norris, you go, yeah, hards, inters. I think we should do inters. And so I just don't think McLaren have grasped the overall picture of the fact that they're managing this title run-in. They're in this hybrid position. It's an odd, yeah.
Yeah, it is. And they're new. It's been a while since they've been here. So you do expect to see things like this, sort of like, that's like short-term gain, long-term pain choices, but fair play to Norris. And I think he's gotten assistance from Piastri on the radio. They told him it's for the other side of the garage. If you had to do it, which would you pick? And he's like, soft tire is better. And unlike certain other people might have done, I think he pretty much told the truth on that one.
Okay, so now you and I have to do our good things.
You haven't done your Miss the Apex yet.
I did the Lawson on track thing.
Did you explain it?
I did. It was scary. Go and look it up. Like I did the whole thing with the guy in Korea, and then I set it up like, oh, come on, man.
Right.
Come on.
All right, fine. I thought you were saving it till now. I thought you were saying you were going to do it, but you're going to do the actual thing now.
It was as bad as I described earlier. No, we're going to do the good thing award now, and hopefully the bumper will magically appear.
Well done.
It's super hard when normally Steve would be in our ear producing. The specific setup we've got means he can't talk to us, so we're communicating in WhatsApp. So, Matt Trumpets, you are at MattPT55 on all the social medias. You are most active in our Patreon Discord, so people should follow you there by signing up $5 a month, which these days, $5, that's like a Kit Kat or a soda. It's a Mountain Dew. Like, for the price of a Mountain Dew a month.
$5 a month, you get the chance to occasionally talk to former Mercedes and head of strategy at Haas
engineers, and like we're hanging out there, and you get unfiltered Matt and Spanners, where we're just reacting fully in the race, going nuh-uh. And so it's a great place. Honestly, it's a great place to hang out during the race. It's the best F1 forum, full stop. So patreon.com/MrApex. Try it for a little while. You're the reason why we can compete in this space. You're the reason why we can afford financially to spend time doing Mr. Apex stuff. You're the reason why we can afford to have Matt, Jono, and Steve do the Thursday preview without me. And I needed a break. I needed family time. But because of your support, we were able to pull all that together. So, Matt, who hit the Apex for you?
Well, now we have you know what? I think we have a problem. We have 3 at least, and there's only the 2 of us. But I'm going to do the rare thing. I'm going to go with the very, very obvious choice here, which will get me accused of bias forever. But Lando Norris. I mean, come on, Lando Norris.
Lando.
And here, I knew the moment they started talking about, well, are you worried about that? And this goes back to Qatar. Are you worried about these repercussions from the Singapore thing? And he's just like, nope. I'm like, uh-oh. Something has changed. Something has really changed. And we saw it today. It all came together across the whole weekend. He was just sublime in his extracting every last second of lap time from that car. Made it look easy despite that run to turn one, where traditionally we have given him, would you say, rather a lot of grief about his turn one?
Yes.
His carefulness, and he just zip.
No. It was really like encouraging to see him take that really hard inside line and just go, right, no, I will defend the inside line for all it's worth. That was great. Hey, give your other ones, because just gamble that you're not stealing mine. It's fine. Go for it.
All both of them?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. You got to throw Behrman out there.
Damn it.
And Haas. You can have that one, because you know what my other one was going to be? And you may not like this. Oh gosh, no, there's another one. But right. Generally good things, honorable mentions. The other really good thing has to be the way Max drove today.
Yes, that was my other one. Yeah, but
banging that soft tire to death and still catching. I mean, really, I thought, I'm not a big conspiracy guy. When that virtual safety car came out, I was like, oh, they were like, oh, Behrman's ahead. Leclerc's ahead. We just got to throw Ferrari a bone here. Let's just stop the race. Now, I know it was really done for safety reasons. I can't make that argument, but it sure seemed like it at the time, didn't it?
Yeah, no, obviously you've taken like all three of mine. So let's see, where can I go? Where, if you look up and down the field, can we find some positivity? I am going to say George Russell for stamping his authority and winning that pit wall battle to get let through. But also, like, little side mentioned in dispatches for Antonelli. The very second that battle was over, he came on the radio going, "Oh, excuse, I don't mean to be a bother. Excuse me, but swap back now." And then, he said it exactly like that. And then they did. So yeah, interesting times at Mercedes. Click the show notes below to follow all our social media. For me, Matt, and Jono, I'm Spanners Ready everywhere. I love getting your DMs. Email me, spanners@missedapex.net. Join our Patreon Discord, or just search for Spanners Ready on X, Instagram. Not so much Instagram. I don't really understand how it works. And Blue Sky. Until we see you next time, work hard, be kind, and have fun. This was Missed Apex Podcast. See if they can hear you on the podcast version, not the YouTube. They used to be not being quiet on this bit anyway. Matt would be such a goody two-shoes being quiet.
But it's not that voice.
Yes, it's very authoritative.
It's like you're back in third grade. Teacher yelling at me.
Do your best F1 car noise.
Meow.